Where do we go when we die? Part 2. Let's answer some questions that you guys have been asking. I have presented that the scriptures tell us when we die, our spirits wait in Sheol, which is down in the ground. There's a good side called Abraham's bosom, and there's a bad side where the unrighteous dwell. There's a chasm in between, as we are told by the story of the rich man and Lazarus. All throughout the scriptures we're told that we sleep and we wait in the ground for the day of resurrection, which is also known as the day of the Lord, when Yeshua HaMashiach returns in the sky with New Jerusalem. Let's go to the words of Yeshua, our Messiah. What did he say about resurrection? In John chapter 6, verses 39 through 54, Yeshua says 4 separate times that the righteous will be raised on the last day by him. That means that we're not already in heaven. We're waiting to be resurrected. Going back to the story of Nicodemus and Yeshua, this is what Yeshua has to say about spirits going up to heaven. No one has ascended to heaven but he who came down from heaven, that is the Son of Man, who is in heaven. Yeshua tells Nicodemus that we must be reborn into our spirit bodies before we can ascend through the layers of firmament and make it up into the heavenly places. We know that the resurrection takes place at the end, and we know that Yeshua himself said that he will resurrect the righteous at the end. I have been asked, what about Luke 23:46? And Jesus, crying out with a loud voice, said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last. Doesn't that mean that when he died, he went straight to heaven? Well, other than the fact that he told us the only sign we had that he was a true prophet was the sign of Jonah, which meant that he would be in Sheol for 3 days and 3 nights. We also have John 20:17, which clearly tells us that Yeshua has not returned to the Father yet after his resurrection. Therefore, we know that he was in the ground for 3 days. But as we know, Scripture does not contradict itself. As Ecclesiastes 12:7 says, when the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. So that's exactly what Yeshua was saying on the cross. Father, receive my spirit. But what does the word spirit mean? In the Strong's Concordance, the word spirit means ruach in Hebrew, which also translates to wind or breath or life. This coincides directly with Genesis 2:7, when God breathed life into man. The word used there means puff, wind, breath, spirit, soul. So when we die, our bodies made of dust return to the dust. The breath of life returns to the Father, and our soul, that part of us that makes us who we are, it waits in Sheol for the resurrection and a new body. As we read in 1 Thessalonians 4:15, for if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so God will bring with him those who have fallen asleep in Yeshua. The dead will rise first. That's because the dead have been waiting in Sheol this whole time. They are the ones who come up first for the resurrection, and then the living will be caught up to meet them in the sky. Of course, everyone brings up Revelation 6:9 that says that John saw souls under the altar. Let's look at this model of creation. You see how at the very top we have the Father, and that's where the altar is. Now, if you look under the altar, we have Sheol. So therefore, the souls are always going to be seen under the altar. Some people are using the story of Yeshua's death, where it says that people who were righteous were raised from the grave the day that he died. And they say, see, the resurrection already happened. Well, let's take a look at that. Revelation 20, verses 4 through 5, talks about the first resurrection. It takes place after the Great Tribulation, after all of the end times things have happened. So that way we know that there are no other resurrections before that. The people who came back to life on the day of Yeshua's death are righteous men and women who were affected by the power of God being poured out on the earth. And their bodies came back to life, just like Lazarus or the little girl that Yeshua brought back. They did not have their full resurrected bodies. They were coming back in bodies of flesh, and they died and were put in the ground again. And of course, I've had this quoted at me so many times this week. 2 Corinthians 5:8. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. But that's not what it says. In the beginning parts of Corinthians, Paul talks about how he's tired of his body dragging him down. 2 Corinthians 5:8 says, we are of good courage, I say, and prefer rather to be absent from the body and to be at home with the Lord. He doesn't say we go straight to God when we die. He says that we're tired of being in these bodies and we so much want that promised resurrection and the new, wonderful, forever bodies that are promised. That has nothing to do with going straight to God when we die. That's just simply wanting to be in His presence. We all want to be in His presence. His will does not change based on our desires. I believe that I've been able to prove with all of Scripture that we die, our bodies turn to dust, our soul goes into Sheol, and the spirit of life that was breathed into us goes back to the Father. I can't explain it any other way. That's how Scripture tells us that it happens. Thanks for watching, guys. Shalom.